Welcome to Void Case Files. I'm your host, and before we dive into today's case, I need to ask for your help. We're pushing to hit 10,000 subscribers by the end of 2026, and we're committed to bringing you daily videos, real stories, real mysteries, real investigations. If you find value in what we do here, hit that subscribe button. It helps us keep going. Now, let's get into today's case, a story about memory, loss, and something far worse waiting in the places we can never truly leave behind. October 18th, 2023. The smell of roasting chicken filled Nathan Pearson's kitchen when his phone rang. Riverside Police Department. His stomach dropped before Officer Patricia Donnelly even spoke. "Mr. Pearson, we've located your father. He's safe." Nathan hadn't known Raymond was missing. The officer explained that 73-year-old Raymond Pearson had been found sitting on a bench outside the old Riverside textile mill at 7 p.m. A jogger had called it in, concerned about an elderly man sitting alone in the dark. Raymond had last been seen leaving for his afternoon walk at 4:30. "The textile mill? That's 6 miles from here." "Yes, sir. Your father walked the entire distance." 6 miles. His father, who sometimes forgot which room was the bathroom, had navigated 6 miles to a building that had been closed since 1998. Nathan grabbed his keys, but before he left, Officer Donnelly said something that made him pause. "Mr. Pearson, this is the 4th one this month." "4th what?" A long silence. "4th dementia patient we've found at that exact location. Same bench. All of them saying they needed to check on the second shift." The Riverside police station smelled like burnt coffee and floor cleaner. Raymond sat in a plastic chair, looking small and confused, his cardigan buttoned wrong. When Nathan knelt in front of him, his father's eyes held a strange clarity he hadn't seen in months. "Nathan, did you see them?" "See who, Dad?" "The others. They were waiting with me." Raymond's voice was steady, lucid. 7 of them, maybe 8, all sitting together. Thompson was there. He said we'd all go in together when it's time. Thompson had been dead for 20 years. The mill had been empty for 25. Officer Donnelly pulled Nathan aside, her face tight with something that looked like fear poorly hidden. "I shouldn't tell you this, but you should know. We've had 17 cases in 6 weeks, different locations around town, the old elementary school, the train station on Polk Street, the factory on Route 40, all abandoned places, and Mr. Pearson, they're all describing other people. Specific names, specific details. We looked them up. They're real people. They all worked at these locations." She lowered her voice. "They're all dead." In the car, Nathan asked his father about the walk. Raymond described the route with disturbing precision. Every turn, every street, landmarks that hadn't existed in decades. "I took the same route I always took," Raymond said, staring out the window. "But there were others walking with me this time. I could see them clearly. Thompson and Eddie Kowalski, and people I didn't know. Young people, old people, all of us heading the same direction." "What others, Dad? There was no one with you." Raymond turned to look at him, and Nathan's breath caught. His father's eyes were perfectly focused, more aware than they'd been since the diagnosis. "You can't see them yet. Your mind's too solid. But mine's coming apart, and that's when you can see through the cracks. That's when they can reach you." His father's hand gripped Nathan's arm with surprising strength. "They said more are coming. They said the gathering is soon." Nathan Pearson was 38, a financial analyst who'd moved back to Riverside 8 months ago after his mother died of cancer. Raymond had been diagnosed with early-stage Alzheimer's 6 months later. The disease was supposed to progress slowly, but in the past 2 weeks something had changed. His father's confusion had increased dramatically, but so had these strange moments of crystalline clarity where Raymond seemed to understand something Nathan couldn't grasp. That night, Nathan researched obsessively. He found the typical information about dementia wandering, the 60% statistic, the safety recommendations. But then he found something else, a caregiver forum with a post from 3 weeks ago. "My mother with Alzheimer's keeps talking about the gathering. She says she needs to be there when it happens. She's drawn the same symbol 40 times, a spiral with 7 lines. When I ask what it means, she just smiles and says I'll understand when my time comes. Has anyone else experienced this?" The thread had 51 responses, caregivers from different states, all reporting identical behavior. Their loved ones with dementia suddenly trying to reach specific abandoned locations, all drawing the same symbol, all talking about gatherings and others waiting and something coming. Nathan scrolled to the most recent post, dated yesterday. "My father made it to the old factory last night. Police found him this morning. Heart attack," they said. But his eyes were open, and he had this expression, like he'd seen something beautiful. There was a smell in that building, something wrong, like ozone and rotting flowers, and on the wall next to him, he'd drawn that symbol in his own blood. I can't stop thinking about his face. He looked happy. Nathan closed his laptop, his hands shaking. This was just internet hysteria. Grief-stricken people finding patterns in tragedy. His father had Alzheimer's. This was a symptom, nothing more. But when he checked on Raymond before bed, he found his father standing at the window, staring out at the dark street. On the condensation of the glass, Raymond had traced a symbol with his finger, a spiral with 7 lines radiating outward. October 22nd, 4:30 a.m. The door alarm shrieked Nathan awake. He stumbled downstairs to find Raymond dressed in work clothes from the 90s, standing in the hallway with a packed lunch. But what stopped Nathan cold was that his father was talking, having a conversation with someone Nathan couldn't see. "I understand," Raymond said to the empty air beside him, nodding. "Yes, I'll be ready. I know the way now. You've shown me." "Dad, who are you talking to?" Raymond turned, and his eyes had that same impossible clarity. "Eddie's here. He came to remind me about the route. He says the old paths are opening again, the ones we closed off when we built over them. When you pave over a thin place, it doesn't go away. It just waits underneath." "Eddie Kowalski died in 1989, Dad." "I know. That's why he can come now." Raymond said this with the patience of someone explaining something simple to a child. The dead ones come first. They remember the paths because death showed them. They come back to guide the living ones, the ones whose minds are opening up. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked. The dead ones come first. Nathan felt ice in his stomach. He managed to get Raymond back to bed, but sleep was impossible. At 6 a.m. he called the Alzheimer's Association helpline. The counsellor listened patiently as Nathan described the wandering, the forum posts, the pattern. "Hallucinations are common in dementia, Mr. Pearson. The brain creates images to fill in gaps in perception." "But it's not just my father. There are dozens of cases. They're all seeing the same things, going to the same types of places." A pause. "Mr. Pearson, I'm going to transfer you to someone. There's a neurologist who's been studying something similar. Her name is Dr. Sarah Whitman." Dr. Whitman called back within an hour. Her voice was tight, controlled, like someone trying very hard to sound professional while being terrified. "Mr. Pearson, I need you to tell me everything your father has said. Every detail about the gathering, the others, the symbols, and I need you to tell me the truth. Can you see them too?" "See what?" "The figures, the ones your father talks to." "No, there's nothing there." "Good. That means you still have time." Dr. Whitman took a breath. "I've been documenting cases for 8 weeks, 53 patients across 12 states, all with dementia or Alzheimer's, all exhibiting identical behavior. Purposeful, wandering to abandoned structures, describing encounters with deceased individuals, drawing the same symbol, talking about a gathering. The patients all show the same abnormal neural activity, like their brains are resonating at a frequency we can't normally detect. What's causing it? I don't know, but I know it's accelerating. 2 months ago we had isolated cases. Now we're seeing clusters. And Mr. Pearson, there's something else. Every location these patients are drawn to, when we research the history, they all have something in common." "What? Mass death?" "The textile mill. There was a fire in 1972 that killed 53 workers. The elementary school burned in 1954. 22 children died. The train station? There was a collision in 1947. Every single location is built on top of a tragedy. And before those tragedies, there were older ones. The original buildings going back 100 years. 200. Layer after layer of death in the same spots." Nathan's mouth was dry. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying there are places where the boundary is thin, where death has happened so many times that something wore through. And I think your father's disease is making him sensitive to whatever is on the other side. October 25th. Nathan attended a caregiver support group at the community centre, desperate to talk to others who understood. What he found was worse than he'd imagined. Ellen Graves sat with a folder full of drawings. My mother, Diane, has advanced Alzheimer's. She can barely speak anymore, but she draws this, over and over. Ellen spread out dozens of papers. The spiral with 7 lines, drawn in pencil, crayon, sometimes scratched into surfaces with her fingernails. She's never been artistic. She has almost no fine motor control left, but she draws this perfectly every time. Trevor Ming's hands shook as he held his coffee. My father, Kenneth, is in late-stage dementia. He can't walk unassisted, but 3 nights ago, I found him standing in the backyard at 3 a.m. Not confused, not wandering, standing perfectly still, staring at nothing. When I brought him inside, he looked at me and said, "They're practicing, getting ready for all of us." Then he went back to not recognizing me. Lisa Rodriguez was pale, her eyes red from crying. My grandmother Carmen speaks Spanish, always has, but yesterday she started talking in a language I've never heard. I recorded it, played it for a linguistics professor at the university. He said it sounded like an extinct dialect, something pre-Columbian. She kept saying the same phrase over and over. I finally found a translation. Lisa's voice dropped to a whisper. It means the harvesters are coming. The room was silent. Patricia, the social worker who ran the group, looked older than she had the week before. Dark circles under her eyes, her hands unsteady. "I've been doing this for 15 years, she said quietly. "I've never seen anything like this. The wandering, the symbols, the identical stories. And there's something else I need to tell you. Something the police asked me not to share, but you deserve to know." She pulled out a map of Riverside and surrounding areas. Red dots marked locations where dementia patients had been found. "Look at the pattern." Nathan stared. The dots formed a perfect circle, roughly 15 miles in radius. At the centre was the old railway line where the original Riverside textile mill had stood before it burned. "They're all being drawn to the same place," Patricia said. "Or rather, they're being drawn to form a circle around it, like they're marking something, outlining something." "What's at the centre?" Ellen asked. "Nothing now, just ruins and overgrown tracks. But I did some research." Patricia pulled out old newspaper clippings. The textile mill burned in 1972, 53 dead. Before that, it was a sanitarium. Burned to the ground in 1899, everyone inside killed. Before that, according to county records, it was a colonial-era poorhouse. Also destroyed by fire in 1847. Going back further, local indigenous oral histories say the spot was considered cursed. They called it the thin place, where the world of the living and the world of the dead touched. Trevor leaned forward. "How far back does it go?" "As far back as I can trace. Every 50 to 70 years, something built on that spot burns down and everyone dies. Like clockwork. The last fire was 1972. Patricia's voice shook. "It's been 51 years. The implications hung in the air like smoke. Nathan started his own investigation that night, unable to sleep, unable to stop. He found census records, death certificates, archaeological surveys. The pattern was undeniable. The thin place had been killing people in cycles for at least 300 years. And each time, right before the fire, there were reports of strange behavior in the elderly and mentally ill. Wandering, gathering, speaking in unknown languages, drawing symbols. The last documented gathering before the 1972 fire had been on November 7th, 1972. The fire started that same night. November 7th, 2023 was 2 weeks away. Nathan tried to tell someone, anyone who would listen. He called the police, who thanked him and did nothing. He contacted historians, who dismissed it as coincidence. He reached out to Dr. Whitman again. "I know," she said before he could speak. "I've been tracking it too. The cycle, the pattern, the date. We have 78 confirmed cases now, all in a 100-mile radius of Riverside. All dementia patients, all describing the same thing. Figures that come at night. Voices that teach them the old paths. A promise that if they gather at the right place at the right time, they'll remember everything again. They'll be whole. What happens if they complete the gathering? Dr. Whitman was quiet for a long moment. I think something comes through. I think that's what the fires are, not accidents, consequences. The boundary breaks, something crosses over, and then it burns everything to close the door again, like cauterizing a wound. How do we stop it? I don't know if we can. October 29th, 3:17 a.m. Nathan woke to silence. The wrong kind of silence, the absence of sound that means something is missing. He ran to Raymond's room. Empty. The GPS tracker sat on the kitchen table next to a note, but the note wasn't written in English. It was that symbol drawn over and over, filling the entire page, and underneath, in his father's handwriting, but shaky, wrong. The paths are open. We remember the way. We're going home. Nathan called 911 with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Officer Donnelly arrived within minutes, her face grim. He's not the only one. We've had 19 calls in the past hour, all dementia patients, all heading northwest, toward the thin place. Nathan didn't wait for official response. He drove toward the old railway line, following the route he knew his father would take. The October night was clear and cold, the moon 3/4 full. As he got closer, he saw other cars on the roads, other families desperately searching. Then he saw the lights, not car headlights, flashlights, dozens of them, converging on the ruins from every direction, like a mandala forming in real time. Nathan parked and ran. The old railway line was overgrown with weeds that had turned brown with autumn, and the ruins of the mill were just concrete foundations and twisted metal, barely visible in the dark. But there were people there. Elderly people in pajamas and bathrobes, walking with purpose, their faces serene. Raymond was there, standing at the edge of what had once been the main building. He wasn't alone. Nathan counted 47 elderly people, all standing in a perfect circle around the foundation. Family members stood at a distance, crying, pleading, but none of them could break through. The patients didn't seem to hear them, but that wasn't the worst part. Between the elderly patients, barely visible in the flashlight beams, were other figures. At first, Nathan thought it was a trick of the light. Shadows cast wrong. Then one of them turned to look at him, and he saw it clearly. A man in work clothes from the 1970s, his face twisted wrong, his eyes too large and too dark, translucent but becoming more solid with each passing moment. And behind him, more figures. Hundreds of them forming concentric circles around the patients. Men and women in clothing from different eras, factory workers, nurses in old-fashioned uniforms, patients in sanitarium gowns, children in colonial dress. The dead ones come first. Nathan tried to run to his father, but someone grabbed his arm. Dr. Whitman was there, along with a small team. She had equipment he didn't recognize. Monitors and sensors pointed at the gathering. "Don't," she said, her voice tight with fear. "We tried to separate one of the patients." His heart stopped immediately. They're connected to something. Break the connection and you kill them. "What are those things?" Nathan demanded, pointing at the translucent figures. "I don't know, but they're getting more solid, more real, like they're using the patients as anchors to pull themselves through." Nathan looked at his father. Raymond was smiling, tears running down his face, reaching out to touch one of the figures. "Eddie," Raymond said clearly, his voice full of joy. "You came back. I knew you would." The figure his father touched had been a man once. Nathan could see that. But there was something wrong about it, something that hurt to look at directly. The proportions were slightly off, the movements too fluid. It smiled at Raymond with too many teeth. "Dad!" Nathan shouted. "That's not Eddie. That's not him." But Raymond couldn't hear him. None of them could. The elderly patients had begun to hum, a single note that seemed to vibrate in Nathan's bones. The sound made his vision blur, made the world feel thin and unstable. Dr. Whitman's equipment started screaming. Neural activity is synchronized across all patients. Brainwaves identical. It's like they're one organism now, one receiver picking up a signal we can't detect. One of her team members, a young man with a tablet, looked up with wide eyes. "Doctor, the thermal imaging. You need to see this." Dr. Whitman looked at the screen and went pale. She turned it toward Nathan. On the thermal display, the area inside the circle was cold. Not just cool, but wrong, like heat itself was being drained away. And in that cold spot, something massive was forming. A shape too large to fit in the space, folding in on itself, pressing against reality like a hand pressing against thin fabric. "It's coming through," Dr. Whitman whispered. "Whatever this is, it's using them as a doorway." The humming grew louder. The air began to smell wrong, like ozone and copper, and something organic rotting. Nathan's nose started to bleed. So did everyone else's within 50 feet of the circle. The translucent figures were almost solid now, and there were more of them, pressing in from all sides. Raymond turned to look at Nathan one last time. For a moment his eyes cleared completely, and he was himself again, fully aware, fully present. "I'm sorry," he said, and Nathan could hear him clearly despite the distance and the humming. "I tried to fight it, but Nathan, it showed me. It showed me everything, all my memories, perfect and clear. Your mother, she's here. She's been waiting, and they promised if we open the door all the way, we'll remember forever. We'll be whole again." "Dad, they're lying. Whatever they are, they're using you." "Am I being used?" Raymond smiled sadly. "Or am I finally useful again? I've been disappearing piece by piece for 2 years. At least this way, I choose how I go. I choose to remember." He reached toward the air, toward something Nathan still couldn't quite see. But for just a second he saw her, a flicker of a woman in the space where Raymond was reaching. Helen Pearson, dead for 2 years, her face young and beautiful like in their wedding photos. But her eyes were wrong, too dark, too deep, and when she smiled at Raymond, Nathan saw the same too many teeth. "That's not Mom," Nathan screamed. "Dad, that's not her." But Raymond was already stepping forward into the circle, into the cold spot where reality was ripping open. The humming stopped. All at once, 47 voices cutting off in perfect synchronization. The silence was worse than the sound. Then something else began. A vibration too low to hear, but felt in the chest, in the bones, in the teeth. The ground beneath the circle began to crack, not breaking apart, but folding, opening, revealing something beneath that shouldn't exist. A space that was too deep, too dark, angles that hurt to perceive. The translucent figures began to laugh. Dr. Whitman grabbed Nathan's arm, dragging him backward. "Run! Everyone get back! Get back now!" The earth opened. Not a hole, not a chasm, but a tearing, like fabric ripping. And through the rip, something looked up. Nathan only glimpsed it for a second before Dr. Whitman's team pulled him behind a van, but that second burned into his brain. An eye, massive and impossible, made of geometries that couldn't exist in three-dimensional space. And it was hungry, not for food, but for something else, for memory, for identity, for the self. The harvester had arrived. The elderly patients stepped into the rip one by one, walking calmly like they were going home. Raymond was among them, still reaching for the thing wearing his wife's face. As they crossed the threshold, Nathan saw them change. Their bodies remained, but something essential left them, pulled out like thread from cloth. The figures that had been guiding them fed on what they took, grew more solid, more real, drinking in decades of accumulated memory and self until they could almost pass for human. Then the fire started. Not from any source Nathan could see. It simply erupted from the rip itself, white-hot and wrong-smelling, spreading impossibly fast across the ground. The figures shrieked and scattered, their stolen solidity burning away. The rip in reality began to close, reality reasserting itself violently. "The fire is the immune response," Dr. Whitman shouted over the roar of flames, the world burning away the infection. They ran, stumbling through the dark, the fire racing behind them. Nathan looked back once and saw the elderly patients still standing in the circle, their bodies untouched by flames, but their eyes empty. 47 shells, breathing but gone. By the time the fire department arrived, it had burned itself out. The area inside the circle was scorched black, but the patients were physically unharmed, not a burn on them. But when the paramedics checked them, every single one was the same, persistent vegetative state, hearts beating, lungs breathing, but nothing behind the eyes. Whatever made them who they were had been taken. Raymond lived for 3 more weeks in the hospital, his body kept alive by machines. Nathan sat with him every day, talking to a father who couldn't hear, looking into eyes that didn't see. The doctors called it a medical mystery, blamed it on the stress of the wandering, the exposure to cold. Only Nathan and Dr. Whitman and the other families knew the truth. On November 7th, the 1-year anniversary of the gathering, Nathan drove back to the railway line. The scorched earth had been covered over, the ruins finally demolished. The city had declared it an environmental hazard and paved over everything. But Nathan knew the truth. You can't pave over a thin place. It just waits underneath. He stood at the edge of where the circle had been, and in the afternoon light he thought he saw something. A shimmer in the air like heat waves, but the day was cold, and for just a moment he heard it. A humming, low and persistent, coming from deep beneath the pavement. Still calling, still waiting. Nathan got into his car and drove away, but he knew he'd be back, because that's when he understood the final horror. It wasn't over. The gathering had failed this time, the door had closed, the fire had come, but it had happened before, many times before, and it would happen again. The cycle continued. Every 50 to 70 years the boundary weakened, the things beneath reached up, and the vulnerable ones heard the call, and Nathan had started having headaches, just small ones, easy to dismiss, and occasionally just at the edge of his vision he'd see something that wasn't there. A flicker of movement, a shadow cast wrong. He'd started drawing something too, absent-mindedly while on phone calls, a spiral with 7 lines. His mind was still whole, still solid, but he was 38. In 30, 40 years, when age began its work, when his thoughts started to slip, when his memories began to fade, would he hear it too? Would the humming call to him the way it had called to his father? Would he be able to resist, knowing that it promised perfect memory, perfect clarity, everything he would have lost returned to him? Or would he walk willingly into the dark, desperate to remember who he'd been? Nathan didn't know. All he knew was that the thin place was still there, waiting. The harvesters were still hungry. And eventually, if you lived long enough, your mind would weaken enough to hear them. The gathering never truly ended. It was just waiting for the next harvest. This case remains open in my files, though officially it was closed as a medical anomaly. Dr. Whitman continues to document cases now numbering in the hundreds nationwide. Different locations, different thin places, but the same pattern, the same symbol, the same promise of restored memory in exchange for everything you are. If someone you love starts wandering, starts drawing spirals with 7 lines, starts talking about gatherers and thin places, and the dead ones coming first, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, because there may be nothing you can do. The things that wait in those places are patient and hungry and very, very old. They've been farming us for centuries, waiting for our minds to weaken enough to hear their call, and they know something we're only beginning to understand. Alzheimer's disease isn't just destroying our memories, it's making us permeable, opening us up, making us vulnerable to things that have been waiting a very long time for us to be weak enough to harvest. According to the Alzheimer's Association, 6 in 10 people with dementia will wander, but they don't tell you where they're really going. They don't tell you what's waiting at the end of the path. Now you know, and I'm sorry for that too, because once you know, you can't unknow it, and someday when you're old and your mind begins to slip, you'll remember this story. You'll remember the thin places, you'll remember the promise of perfect memory, of being whole again, and you'll have to choose whether to resist the call or walk willingly into the dark, trading everything you are for the memory of everything you were. I hope you choose to resist it, but I understand if you don't. Thank you for listening to Void Case Files. If this story disturbed you, good. It should. Hit that subscribe button. We're aiming for 10,000 subscribers by the end of 2026. And with your support, we can keep investigating the things that wait in the dark, the things that feed on us when we're weak. Until next time, stay vigilant. And if you start seeing spirals with 7 lines, if you start hearing humming that no one else can hear, If the dead ones start coming to you in dreams, don't follow them. No matter how much they promise, no matter how much you want to remember, the truth is out there. Sometimes that's the most terrifying part.